Alexandra Eala, what are you going to do next? That is some win.
Oh my God.
Alex, I think everyone here is waiting to hear from you. You looked incredibly locked in throughout that match. You let the racket do the talking, and you managed your emotions so well. Just tell us your first thoughts after that win.
Oh, all the emotions are coming because the tension was so high, especially during that second set. So I'm really happy to have gotten through,
Tomorrow morning, when you check those polished sports websites or flip to those glossy tennis networks with their pristine studios and designer graphics, they're going to serve you the same sanitized, corporate-approved story they always do. They'll glance at the final numbers, notice that Jasmine Paolini, the seasoned pro, the Grand Slam contender, the world number 6, dropped a match, and they'll craft some convenient excuse. They'll tell you it was the lighting conditions, or maybe the court surface didn't suit her style, or perhaps she's dealing with some minor injury, or the altitude threw off her timing. Don't buy into any of that manufactured nonsense. Not even for a second. What I'm holding here is raw data straight from that court, and it paints a completely different, absolutely shocking picture of where women's tennis is headed right now. This isn't just match statistics we're looking at. This is evidence of a seismic shift, and the casualties are piling up among tennis royalty. You need to understand exactly what just happened out there, because Alexandra Eala didn't just get fortunate with a few good shots. She didn't catch a higher-ranked opponent on an off day. She didn't benefit from some random lucky breaks. What she did was orchestrate a complete psychological, tactical, and statistical demolition that left a top 10 player absolutely shattered, and she pulled this off while carrying a devastating weakness that should have ended her tournament instantly.
For Alexandra Eala. Listen to that noise. Thank you, Jasmine, she says. Paolini gracious as ever in defeat. The former champion is out.
Here's where this gets absolutely mind-bending, and why you need to stick with me through this entire breakdown. When you examine how Alexandra Eala actually secured this victory, taking that opening set 6-1 and grinding through a marathon second set to win 7-6 in a 7-5 tiebreaker, the mathematics simply don't add up. Eala stepped onto that court today carrying a massive, glaring vulnerability in her game. A weakness so statistically catastrophic that in virtually every professional tennis scenario, it spells certain defeat. Yet somehow she weaponized that exact vulnerability to completely dismantle a world-class opponent. This is advanced strategic thinking while everyone else is still figuring out the basics. Now let's examine what looks impressive on the surface. Let's dive into Jasmine Paolini's numbers, because this is exactly where conventional sports media completely misses the point. Looking at just one isolated statistic, you might actually think she dominated the serving department today. Check out her first serve percentage numbers. Paolini connected on 74% of her first serves. Stop right there and consider what that represents in today's professional women's tennis landscape. When you're finding the service box on nearly 3/4 of your opening shots, you should be controlling every single rally from the very first ball. You're immediately putting your opponent in defensive mode, forcing them into uncomfortable positions, making them scramble just to stay in the point. According to every tennis textbook ever written, a 74% first serve success rate is the ultimate consistency benchmark. It's what every coach tries to develop in their players. It represents technical mastery.
She's a great opponent, obviously being top 10 and a former champion here. So to be able to compete with her at this level is a great achievement for me. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that second set. At 5-3, you had a couple match points, and then in the tiebreak again. What was going through your mind to close it out?
Yeah, in
But here's where Alexandra Eala's brilliant tactical awareness becomes absolutely revolutionary. Eala studied that 74% first serve rate coming across the net, and she treated it like it was completely meaningless. Take a hard look at Paolini's first serve winning percentage. 51%. Just let that sink in for a moment. 51%. Paolini was executing her most important shot, her primary offensive weapon, her first serve consistently all match long, but she was dropping almost half of those points anyway. This is statistically impossible to explain. How does an elite professional tennis player connect with their first serve and then immediately lose the rally 50% of the time? The explanation is pure aggression. The explanation is that Alexandra Eala was attacking those tennis balls with absolutely relentless intensity. She captured 30 receiving points in this match while Paolini managed only 23. Eala figured out within those opening few games that Paolini's first serve was nothing but smoke and mirrors. It was all presentation with no substance. It was a placement shot disguised as a power shot. Sure, it had pinpoint accuracy, it caught the lines beautifully, it found the corners perfectly, but it completely lacked the necessary bite. It was missing the heavy rotation, it was missing the penetrating speed, and it was missing the sheer ball weight needed to push an aggressive returner like Eala backward from the baseline. So what was Eala's response? She refused to give ground. She didn't back up behind the baseline to buy herself extra reaction time like most players would. She did something far more dangerous and psychologically devastating to any server. She moved forward to the baseline. She probably stepped inside it. She positioned herself directly in harm's way. She took the ball at the earliest possible contact point, stealing time away from Paolini and immediately forcing the world number 6 into full defensive mode. She grabbed Paolini's strongest statistical category, that high percentage first serve, and she flipped it into her greatest weakness. Picture the psychological destruction happening inside Jasmine Paolini's mind during those moments. You execute your service motion flawlessly. You make perfect contact with the ball. You watch it land exactly where you intended inside the service box. You feel like you've done everything correctly. Then in a split second, that ball comes screaming back past you as a clean winner down the sideline. It's absolutely spirit-crushing. It makes you question your entire approach. You start trying to add extra pace that isn't naturally there, which creates unforced errors, which creates panic mode. That's exactly the trap Eala set during that dominant 6-1 opening set. She methodically destroyed Paolini's go-to weapon, not by playing defense, but by turning it into her own offensive opportunity. She stared down the world number 6 and basically said, "Your strongest shot can't even slow me down." That kind of tactical disrespect is what separates champions from everyone else. But wait, because now we get to the absolutely insane part of this story. This is the section of those statistics that the broadcast team either completely overlooked or deliberately ignored, because it totally contradicts their simple narrative. And it's precisely why Alexandra Eala represents such a dangerous threat to every other player on tour moving forward. We have to discuss Eala's fatal flaw. We have to examine the disaster that was lurking in her game throughout this entire match. We have to break down her second serve performance. Look very carefully at Alexandra Eala's second serve winning percentage today. 38%. I need to repeat that because it sounds like there's been some kind of error. 38%. This isn't just having an off day with one particular shot. This is a complete meltdown of a fundamental tennis skill. At the professional level in women's tennis, when you're only winning 38% of your second serve points, you might as well be hitting underhand lobs to a firing squad. You're essentially walking onto the court and gifting your opponent free games. Every time Eala missed that first serve, Paolini basically had a guaranteed point waiting for her. The instant Eala was forced into second serve territory, Paolini was attacking aggressively, controlling the rally, and finishing it with authority. For comparison, look at what Paolini was doing on the opposite side of the net. Even while getting demolished in that first set, Paolini was winning an impressive 69% of her own second serve points. If I printed out these exact statistics, blocked out the final score and player names, and showed them to any tennis coach anywhere in the world, from the elite academies in Barcelona to the training centers in California, they would focus on one thing immediately. They'd notice that player A won only 38% of second serve points, while player B won 69% of second serve points. That coach would stake everything they own that player B dominated the match, probably winning in straight sets without much difficulty. It's supposed to be mathematically impossible to win any professional match, especially against a top 10 opponent who's seeded 6th at a major tournament, when you're hemorrhaging points that severely on second serves. It's like trying to win a heavyweight fight with both hands tied behind your back while wearing a blindfold every third round. It goes against every principle of competitive tennis. It simply shouldn't be possible. So how did Alexandra Eala not just survive this massive vulnerability, but actually drag this match into a second set tiebreaker, handle all the pressure of a top-tier opponent fighting to save her tournament, and then win that tiebreaker 7-5 without her terrible second serve completely sabotaging her entire performance? How do you conceal a 38% success rate from a Grand Slam finalist? The answer is absolutely ice-cold, calculating, terrifying dominance on the first delivery. Alexandra Eala isn't naive about her game. She has excellent court sense. She recognized that her second serve was betraying her badly. She could feel it happening. She understood that every missed first serve was essentially offering Paolini a free opportunity to climb back into the match. She knew she was extremely exposed. Now, what does your typical developing player do in that situation? What does a player without championship mentality do when their second serve completely falls apart on center court against a 6th seed? They get tight, they overthink, their shoulder tenses up, They start taking pace off their first serve just to ensure it finds the service box so they can avoid hitting that problematic second serve. They play conservatively. They play scared. Alexandra Eala chose the completely opposite approach. She dealt with this crisis by essentially eliminating the second serve from her game entirely. She bet everything on making that first ball count. She went all in on every opening shot. Check her first serve percentage, 77%. She was hitting nearly 80% of her first serves, and she simply refused to give Paolini any chances to attack that vulnerable second serve because she made sure the second serve rarely happened. But she wasn't just pushing these first serves into play. She wasn't just getting them over the net safely. She maintained her aggressive approach throughout because when she connected with that first serve, which happened 77% of the time, she won an incredible 73% of those points. She completely masked her catastrophic weakness by being so devastatingly effective, so remarkably consistent, and so overwhelmingly aggressive on that opening strike that Paolini never got sufficient opportunities to exploit the weak second serve. Consider the mental strength required to execute this strategy successfully. You know that missing by just a few inches means you're probably losing that point. You're performing without any safety net whatsoever. Every single first serve becomes a pressure-packed make-or-break moment, and Eala welcomed that pressure. She fed off it. She operated in that danger zone throughout the match. This isn't just raw athletic ability we're talking about. You can train a player to hit cleaner ground strokes. You can teach them better movement patterns. You can show them proper court positioning. But you absolutely cannot teach this level of mental toughness under fire. This is championship-level strategic thinking coming from an emerging talent. She managed her own limitations, worked around her own weaknesses, and systematically outplayed a seasoned veteran. She essentially communicated to Paolini that yes, my second serve is a disaster today, but that's irrelevant because you're never going to get the chance to see it. That's the mentality of someone destined for greatness. When we examine this upset even more closely, we need to focus on the clutch performance factor, because elite tennis, especially at this tournament level, isn't determined by who executes the most beautiful shots or who has the smoothest technique. It's decided entirely in those crucial moments. It's decided when everything is on the line. It's decided on breakpoints, when the score reaches 30-40, when the stadium falls completely silent, when the pressure becomes almost unbearable. Who rises to the occasion and who crumbles under that weight? Let's examine these numbers. Jasmine Paolini, the experienced veteran, the player who supposedly thrived on the biggest stages in tennis, the competitor who has proven herself at Grand Slam level, had 4 breakpoint chances in this entire match. She converted exactly 2 of them, 50%. Not awful, but certainly not exceptional. It's completely ordinary. Now look at Alexandra Eala's performance. Eala created twice as many opportunities. She earned 8 breakpoint chances on Paolini's serve, and she converted 4 of them. She was constantly, persistently creating pressure. She was constantly threatening. Every time Paolini tried to establish any rhythm, Eala was right there, moving inside the baseline, hunting for an aggressive return. This sustained pressure shows up clearly in the total points won. Eala captured 72 total points compared to Paolini's 57. That's a plus 15-point margin. In any match that goes to a second-set tiebreaker, a plus 15 differential is enormous. It's massive. It proves this wasn't some fortunate victory. This wasn't a situation where a lower-seeded player barely managed to survive a few close games and got lucky with some net cords. This was a systematic, methodical, ruthless destruction of a top seed. Eala outserved her on first deliveries, completely outreturned her from the back of the court, and significantly out-executed her in all the pressure-packed, match-deciding situations. Here's another statistic that demonstrates just how much momentum Eala generated. Look at maximum consecutive points won. At one stretch during this match, Alexandra Eala rattled off 8 straight points. That represents 2 complete service games at love, one after another. When you're competing against the world number 6, winning 8 consecutive points is practically unthinkable. It demands a level of concentration and shot-making precision that leaves opponents completely helpless. And then for several minutes, Paolini had no idea how to stop what was happening to her. Paolini's longest streak was only 5 consecutive points. Eala reached higher peaks, she sustained her dominance longer, and she hit with more authority. Additionally, Eala won as many as 5 straight games, 5 consecutive games. She nearly shut out Paolini completely in that opening set. The psychological impact of dropping 5 games in a row to a lower-ranked opponent is absolutely devastating. You glance toward your coaching team and you have no explanations. You stare at your racket like it belongs to someone else. Even the service statistics tell this story of complete dominance. Eala won 42 points on her own serve despite that awful 38% second serve performance. Paolini managed only 34 points on her serve. Eala held 8 service games compared to Paolini's 5. Eala struck 2 aces while Paolini hit none. Every single category that measures aggression, every single statistic that shows taking control away from your opponent belongs entirely to Alexandra Eala. She committed 2 double faults. Paolini committed 4. Even in the error category, Eala showed better discipline. She was more focused. She was more dialed in. What we witnessed today isn't simply a match result. It's a fundamental shift in the power structure. The warning has officially been sent to every player in the Women's Tennis Association. The current hierarchy is no longer secure. Those players sitting comfortably in the top 10 rankings, the Swiateks, the Sabalenkas, the Gaufs, need to pay attention because change is coming fast. If Alexandra Eala can walk onto center court for a match where her second serve completely abandons her, where she's statistically giving away points every time she misses that first serve, and she can still demolish the number 6 seed 6-1 in the opening set, then demonstrate the incredible mental fortitude to finish it off in a tight 7-5 tiebreaker in the second set, then every other player on tour faces an unprecedented challenge. She demonstrated today that she doesn't require perfect tennis to defeat elite competition. She doesn't need every aspect of her game functioning flawlessly. She doesn't need ideal conditions or perfect circumstances. She just needs her mindset, her aggressive baseline attack, and complete refusal to show fear. She proved she can identify a top player's most impressive statistical weapon, analyze it during live play, recognize it's not actually dangerous, and use it to destroy them completely. That's the signature of a future Grand Slam champion. That's the foundation for complete tour domination. So the next time you hear those commentators explaining how Jasmine Paolini simply had an off day, or how the court conditions were unusual, or how she seemed fatigued from her travel schedule, I want you to think back to these statistics. I want you to remember that 38% second serve number. I want you to remember that 51% win rate on Paolini's first serves. I want you to remember those 8 consecutive points, because the mathematics never lie, even when the mainstream coverage does. These numbers reveal the real story of a revolution that's happening right before our eyes.